Good morning, Erica. Sorry, we were yapping away there.
And we're ready to go.
Good morning, Council, and welcome to this second day of budget deliberations. And it is today, Friday, June 4th. It's again a beautiful day. And Madam Clerk, before we move on to accept the agenda, my understanding is that we will first discuss the capital budget, then the operating budget, and then we will vote on both at the same time? Or was it the intention to vote first on the capital budget, do the operating budget afterwards?
I have a resolution prepared for each of the budgets.
Okay,
So
all right.
it's whichever order you go, I'm ready.
Okay, so with those thoughts, if we turn it over to you to put forward the agenda with the the capital budget first to be discussed and voted on.
Okay, good morning. Before we start to approve the agenda as prepared, I believe Councillor Kelly had requested to go in camera. Is this still the your wish, Councillor Kelly? You're on mute.
Pardon me. Yes, that's my intention, to go in camera.
And it would be for the, as part of the capital budget?
That's correct.
Okay, so I will read the resolution. I require a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Champagne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Trahan. That the draft agenda presented to Council for the special meeting of 2021 operating and capital budget dated June 4th, 2021 be amended by adding the following. In-camera session under 239 bracket 2 item bracket C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding Dugas Road.
All in favor? Carried, thank you. So on that note, any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? There being none, we will proceed. Monsieur Trottier, should we start with the budget as a whole or should we go in camera first? What would be the proper?
I would suggest, Mayor Rochford, that we start with the capital budget.
Correct.
And Antoine will have to stay with us for the in-camera session due to it being Dugas Road. So if we start with the capital budget, I think it's best to maybe open the floor up to what items need to be discussed, Mayor Rochford, because I don't know if you really want to go right down the entire list again. But Tom's with us today and Antoine because those managers had multiple items on the budget. Frank did not, so Frank's not with us this morning. So if we take care of Parks and Rec first and allow Tom then to leave, we can get into the capital for Public Works and then go into in camera. And then once we pass capital, we can then go into operating, if that works for everyone.
That's excellent. Yes. Thank you so
Okay.
much. So on that note, we start then with facilities and recreation. And so Council, you have before you the capital budget that was presented. Are there any items that you would like to bring forward for further discussion or that you would like to see removed from the list? Councillor Kelly, please. You're on mute as well.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Tom, the pickup trailer, is that in addition to the one you have now, or are you going to trade the other one in?
I'm sorry, Councillor, is that the pickup or the trailer?
I'm sorry, the pickup truck.
So the pickup would be an additional one. As we talked at the last one, I mentioned we have been having some difficulties, especially with the pandemic and shuttling staff around. So we have many opportunities where we go to one park where we have to bring staff down, drop them off at one location. And then either the staff will have to access their own vehicles and move things down. And in conjunction with that, they don't have the ability to pull the trailer. So if they're the ones pulling the trailer down to the area the grass is being cut, we have a little difficulty with logistics and getting staff around.
Okay, so my question would be then, when the pandemic is over, do you need one truck or you need two?
It's still the same. It's still the same scenario with regards to the staff not being able to get around to locations, because you may not need 4 staff members perhaps down at Big Moose Say. You may need them down at McPherson. So when you're crossing those, we're all aware of the logistics of traveling throughout this municipality. It's quite a long distance to get from one end of the municipality to the other. So
Yes, it
we
is.
don't like that.
You're right.
And we also have staff that start different times. For example, this year with the construction going on, we have staff starting at 8:30 and other staff at 7. So unless the staff tries to find opportunity to find things around here in the morning, they can't leave until the other staff member gets here to get everybody to location.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yep, asked and answered. Thank you.
Other questions? Not with respect to the pickup truck, just in general? There being none, thank you so much, Mr. Slack. And so we'll be voting on it afterwards, but it would appear that this budget would be accepted by council as presented.
you.
We now move forward to, as our Mr. Trottier mentioned, to Public Works. And are there any, and so if I may on this, I know there may be a few items here that will be coming up for discussion. And so we do want to be able to move forward today with our budget. I was going to suggest that if a councillor brings up an item that Monsieur Boucher would address it, then there would be an opportunity for council members to ask a question. Then he would address it again at the end, and then we would conclude on that discussion. So it's important that when we put our points forward, that they be complete, so that there's not a back and forth, and so we can come to a conclusion. And if necessary, we can vote right then and there, just on a sense of whether or not we want to keep the item as part of the list. So with that said, are there any items that council members would like to bring forward for further discussion? So Councillor Kelly, your hand was up first, and then Deputy Mayor Trahan, then I believe I heard Councillor Champagne. So in that order, then please proceed. Councillor Kelly.
Yep, thank you. I really don't feel a need for a chipper at this time. I know we had some complaints about when the guys were doing the shredding on the side of the roads. Quite frankly, it's a safety issue because it helps the sight lines both ways when you're coming out of a driveway. And there was ice and snow. Steve and I talked to the committee, which is Antoine and Marius. And Marius said they're getting better with the shredder, and they're going to do better in the spring. Now, it does leave a bit of a mess, but they actually, Deputy Mayor Trahan actually mentioned that he thought it was a little bit early when they did it. And that was a problem, quite frankly. My thinking is shredder is not only expensive, they're expensive to repair and they're dangerous to use. And there's the odd person we have that thinks it should be it seems like they want a golf course scenario out in front of their driveways. Well, this is the country and it doesn't happen. The whole time we've been doing the shredding, we had the shredding done by an outside contractor for years, never had a complaint. There's no difference to what our crew is doing to what the contractor did. So I just think we're getting people in the municipality, and they seem to want it just very, very nice and neat. And it'd be great if we could do it. But I found I drove Levine Road 2 weeks ago. I could see nothing wrong with what was done there, and that was last year. And yeah, there's some little spikes left. And quite frankly, I did the same on McPherson or Centennial this year. There was a couple of areas that we shredded. I mean, you're shredding new growth, and it's going to leave a bit of a mess for a while. And then 2 weeks later, you wouldn't know it was there. So I don't feel a need for a shredder at this time. I think it's dangerous. And I think there's been we had a few complaints, but as I say, Maria said, this is it's a learning process and they're going to get better.
Thank you. So Councillor Kelly, with what we outlined, so the shredder then is up for further discussion. So before turning it over to Deputy Mayor Trahan, Councillor Champagne, Monsieur Boucher, would you explain to us the reason, give us the background again on why the shredder, why you believe it's necessary, or if you, so your position, and then we will hear from council, and then you'll have a final chance to reply, and then we will vote on that item, on whether we keep it or remove it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, in a sense, it's an adjustment in our aim to leave a site in a better condition, and it just goes down to the fact that it is a new piece of equipment, the brusher that we're using, we have been getting caught up on years of having had no brushing done. So it's more aggressive, and because it's more aggressive, I think that's why we were getting a few people concerned with the way it was left, the site was left behind. Because we're getting caught up of years of work, that's one of the reasons why the item was put on the table. And simply because as we are doing work that's aggressive, we have the entire network to deal with. In order to go back and have a clean site, we felt that was a solution, and having a chipper would be able to put a few staff together and operate together as a team. So the fact that sometimes we start and sometimes we end the operation of brushing, we may do some in the spring, we would do some in the fall. We felt that owning the equipment was beneficial as opposed to renting in different seasons. So that's kind of the background of it. We can also consider at times, if we do an area that's very dense and that is problematic, that we have the opportunity to look into renting a unit for a month. So that is also an option. The question becomes, what is more beneficial financially on the long run? And the item was put on the table because we felt that, with the combination use of the landfill site, when we need to clean up, when we get our trees and branches out of control, in a sense, it is a benefit as well. So we kind of looked at not only the operation with brushing, but also the benefits of, we've had that some years in the past where it was a very hot summer, and because of restriction with fire ban, it would have been an advantage to have been able to chip material and reduce the piles. So that's kind of the background on this, really. And I mean, it is for council to decide whether or not they want to carry the item, but that's the background.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Boucher. Deputy Mayor Trahan.
Thanks. Morning, gang. Yeah, just I'll touch a little bit on the wood chipper also. It's a piece of equipment that Public Works requires on a very short, limited time base. I think it's been brought up before. A couple things. I think right now it's just a little bit of a bad timing to purchase one. I think it might be something that might come up maybe later on in a year or two. I would like to look at to see renting it compared to owning one. I know owning one that there is some expensive maintenance and parts that if it needs to parts that needs to be replaced are expensive. So I'd like to re-examine this year with regards of the renting of the chipper compared to owning one. Chippers are a dime a dozen, so it's not like it's immediate item that we need to purchase right now. There's lots of them all over the place. And then also I'd like to examine it whether I see there was one that was put forward for like a 6-inch. So I'd like to see if if it's maybe an 8-inch that we actually require compared to a 6-inch, because there is a difference in price on those. So that would also take an account for this year to take a look at and examine and make sure that we're if we do ever purchase one down the road, which one we actually need and purchase the right one at that time. So the rest of the things on the Public Works budget, I'm in favor for, and yeah, we'll leave it like that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Trahan. Councillor Champagne.
Okay, I'm on. All right. No, I agree with what Councillor Kelly and Deputy Mayor Trahan said. I've been it's a $15,000 item, I know, but it's gonna multiply it well over what we're gonna pay for that between the manpower and the sharpening of the knives, and I don't feel that a 6-inch is the proper size of the machine. So I'm saying no to it. The other thing I would like to bring forward again is talking about is getting the tender out for the diesel. I know you said you've talked to the company we're using now, but I've been at this now for a lot of years asking for this, and I really think on paper a tender should be put out there for the fuel, because the fuel is very expensive item. We've got all this equipment that you got to feed. I feel that we should be looking at that. I know nothing we can do about it today. I agree with the budget. The only other thing, part of the budget I'm looking at is the V plow. Antoine was supposed to get back to me on what size that was, the plow.
So Councillor Champagne, we'll just deal with the chipper. We'll finish with the chipper, then we'll move on to what the other items that you have after that.
Oh, I thought I said I don't agree with the chipper, so.
Yes, correct. So we're going to finish with the chipper, then
Yeah.
we'll move to the other items if that's okay.
Oh, okay.
Any other comments on the chipper, Councillor Champagne? Because I know you're very knowledgeable about them.
No,
Myself personally, I just want to say a few words, if I may. I know Councillor Lougheed, you didn't raise your hand. Is that correct? No, and no comments on the chipper, or?
No, I just want to make sure that my only comment, and I know that this isn't maybe not the intention, but that's sitting with me a little bit is, bringing up talking to staff before talking to, like, the undermining of talking to staff. I know that's not the intention, Terry, that's never is with you, but I just think that kind of sat with me a little bit wrong, that we're bringing up staff, although very knowledgeable. Right now we're just talking to the manager, and I just want to maybe clarify that wasn't meant to undermine Antoine. That's okay.
Yeah, correct. Good point, Councillor Lougheed. Antoine is certainly the responsible person for Public Works. Good comments, Council, and it's a good discussion. For myself, I certainly like the approach that was outlined by Deputy Mayor Trahan, where we take the year to examine what our needs are. I have mentioned before, personally, I found that these past 2 years, both prior to the snow this year and last year, we did receive a number of complaints. And I agree with Councillor Kelly. I mean, myself, I go look and I think, okay, well, it's not the end of the world. But ultimately, in this day and age, citizens are very concerned about various items. And similarly to Ontario Hydro, when Ontario Hydro goes to a site, they cut. Their obligation is to remove the brush and take it away and chip it. And they come with a chipper and they do the chipping right there. And I do believe that's probably why, when this issue came forward at the Public Works, that the idea of a chipper was brought forward, because I believe that's how crews work when they are doing this type of work, other organizations. So I understand the concern that we may not have the right chipper. There are issues of security. And so I also like the point that was made by Councillor.
Safety, not security.
Safety. Thank you, Councillor Champagne. Good point. And so I also like the comment by Monsieur Boucher with respect to over time, the size. Certainly now we're cutting bigger brush, right? And over time, the brush will get smaller. And so those are all good comments. So I think we probably don't need to vote. I think it's fairly clear that this is an item that we will send back to Public Works to examine and to consider. My impressions are that as a municipality, we are looking for solutions so that we do respond to our citizens who have brought this up. As I said, there have been multiple complaints, and Monsieur Trottier could speak to us further on that point if he would like, before we conclude.
I have nothing else to add, Mayor Rusher. I mean, it's a council decision. Just one thing we should keep in mind, that if we need a brusher this year, we need to include a few $1,000s in the if we need a chipper rental this year, we've got to include a few $1,000s in the budget to cover that then, because it's not covered in the budget right now to rent a chipper for a month or two.
Correct.
Whatever it be. And Antoine would know more what we need to rent this year. And then one thing to consider as well is, if budget's not passed too soon next spring, we could be renting again and adding a few $1,000s there. So in the end, if it's $5,000 of rentals, we've spent a third of that 15 grand already, right? Something to consider.
Yeah, we used to get a new set of knives, you'd be spending 2 grand anyway, so.
If we're going to speak to maintenance though, Councillor Champagne, Antoine's got figures on maintenance. He called them, and I don't think it's anything close to 2 grand for knives, but not from the figures I've received.
Okay.
So on that note, we're going to let it return to Public Works Committee. As Deputy Mayor outlined, this is an opportunity to examine what our needs are, what the issues are, and to potentially bring it back for our approval in a further budget. So we can maybe have an official vote, but unless there are any other comments, we will move on.
Move. What are we talking about now? Just a
We're going to move on to other items in the capital budget.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you so much for that discussion, and thank you very much for the work you've done, Monsieur Boucher. And so let's now move on to other items. Council members, any other items that you would like to bring forward? And I turn it over to Councillor Champagne because he was proceeding with highlighting another item. Please proceed.
I would like now, get an opportunity to take a look at the diesel issue as far as the fuel. I would like to see a tender go out for that. I've asked for it in the past. I believe other people have asked for it too. I know there's been discussion, but I don't feel that's the proper way of doing it.
And so Councillor Champagne, this matter then needs to go back to staff, and they need to bring it back to us at council with an analysis and a recommendation of whether to proceed to tender or not. Would that be, Monsieur Tracy, would that be correct with you? Yes?
Number one, it's an operating budget matter and not a capital. But number two, if it's council's wish that be reviewed, it's a council direction. I think in the past what has happened is it's been brought up several times by Councillor Champagne. I know I'm aware of that, but there's been no direction from council to proceed in that manner. So, I mean, staff have to take direction from council as a whole.
Correct.
But we'll gladly look at that item. But I can tell you, I mean, like it was mentioned yesterday, that if we're gonna entertain prices from different suppliers every year, I mean, owning the tanks becomes an issue. And we don't own tanks right now. So it requires a review of all of it.
Right. And so if it's okay with council, that's what we will do. Given the request by Councillor Champagne, we will return it to staff to examine the matter and bring it back to us for consideration at a council meeting in the near future. We, Councillor Champagne, you still have the floor.
I just want to make a general comment. Okay, I'm looking at the tender or not the tender, sorry, as the budget. I agree with basically everything that's going on. I just don't like the process that we're doing here. And I agree with Councillor Lockheed too. We're asking questions that should be asked before it goes to budget. And what's happening is we're not crucifying the staff or the manager. We're just asking questions that should be asked before this goes to this as far as it is. If we have any frank discussions on certain items, we really can't discuss them at this point. I believe this should happen, a couple of weeks before it actually comes around. We sit as a group and then we can ask hard questions. I don't think this is the place to do it. All the work has already been done. Great work, but we have no input on what's going on. And I think I'm not the only one who feels this way. So I just don't feel comfortable, asking questions in a public manner that it makes it look like the staff that doesn't know what they're doing. Of course, they know what they're doing. It's just that we have expertise in certain departments and we really can't ask those questions.
So Councillor Champagne, I think questions certainly we need to ask them. You're absolutely right. And so basically I think what we're indicating here with the diesel is that it is an operating budget matter, not a capital budget. And so it's going to come back when we discuss the operating budget. And what basically is the staff are saying is that they haven't brought forward complete information for us to be able to have a full discussion. And so they're not, they believe that, if I heard correctly, our CEO is they want to fully understand the matter of the tanks, so that when we do vote, when we do go up for tender potentially, that we would have full knowledge of what are the issues. So today, I mean, we could delay the operating budget until we have all of that, but it's a matter that I think it's, regular course of business. There's nothing that would prevent us moving forward, I believe, if we decided to tender at that point, we could do so. So that's what
Don't
that's what's
don't-
being suggested here.
Please don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is I do, I'm looking at the numbers. I feel comfortable with most of them. Other things I've got questions about, but I believe in the future that we should have an opportunity to sit down frankly and talk about the items before it comes to the public.
So thank you for that. So on that note, Councillor Champagne, you still have the floor because it was for you to bring back any other items in the capital budget that you are, that you wanted to discuss.
Well, the other one was the V plow. Antoine was supposed to find out what size of plow it was.
Okay, thank you. So on that note, so the V plow now is on the table for discussion. Monsieur Boucher, would you like to provide comments on that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The V plow that we received some quotation. It was the from a local dealership, and they had a 9.2, I believe, feet. So we can call it a 9 foot wide if you want. Because it's a V plow, I've never operated them, but I know on a pickup truck, you can probably fold it in a way so that in the driving lane you're safe. But the measurement, I believe it's when it's straightened out and flat at the 9.2 feet, I believe.
No, that was the question I asked. I want to make sure that the blade was wider than what the truck was.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
Bon. So Councillor Champagne, thank you so much. And I apologize if we've given the impressions that questions are welcome, because they certainly are. So it's just a matter of where do we place the discussion? So thank you. I saw Councillor Kelly, you had your hand up.
Just in furtherance, thank you. Just in furtherance to Councillor Champagne, I agree. It's hard to talk about a department without mentioning names, and we're dealing with the managers and the foreman and so forth. So, and there's no intent to disparage any of our staff, because we have minimal staff and they do one heck of a great job. But we're just questioning sometimes, and we have to question the requests, and you can't do that without mentioning what department we're dealing with and the individuals we're dealing with. But there's no intent at all to disparage anyone on our staff. So I just want to get that clear. If we can, I'm on a little bit of a timeline. Is it possible, unless there's something major, I'd like to go in camera when we're due to talk about an item that needs to go in camera.
I apologize, Councillor Kelly. We'll have to just make sure we go through the capital budget as we said before we proceed to.
Sure.
Do you have any other items that you'd like to bring out of Public Works?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Monsieur Boucher, yes?
Madam Mayor, if I just can add something, and I understand that, it is a little challenging. I hear council sometimes, when there's discussion or going further into the debate of an item. But just one thing that I've been trying to do to assist in that is the little side, like there's two documents that you see. The spreadsheet right now, we're focusing on the breakdown of the items. But there's also the other breakdown with the images and so forth. And there's a bit of description. And in that document that's separate, there's a bit of, I guess if I want a justification. So there's some points. So what I try to do usually is I try to provide some information with the summary sheet. So if council has a chance to next year, what I'll try to do is maybe put a bit more point to justify things as well. And hopefully that will answer some questions if an item is not so clear. So I'd just like to invite council to do a follow through on the sub document that's provided as well. Hopefully that will help.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Boucher. So on that note, council, before we proceed to our in-camera session, are there any other items on the capital budget that you would like to see discussed or removed? And if not, we will proceed to the in-camera discussion for Duga Road. Okay, good. So on that note, thank you very much. So that after our discussion on Duga Road, we will be voting. Madame Kirk has a resolution for the capital budget. And so we now proceed in camera.
Okay, I require a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Deputy Mayor Trahan. That this meeting proceeds to in-camera session at 9:02 a.m. under section 239 bracket 2 of the Municipal Act in order to address a matter pertaining to Dugas Road under the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
All in favor?